30 seconds and counting. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds. Guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. Well, good morning to folks who happen to be in Mountain Time Zone, and also good afternoon to folks who are on the East Coast, and good day, shall we say, to everybody in the Western Hemisphere. Good evening to folks in Europe and Africa, and good very early morning to folks in the Pacific Rim, and welcome to the Angry Astronaut. As some of you can probably tell, at least those of you who are familiar with my broadcasts in the past, I am broadcasting from my father's basement in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where they are having a huge space symposium. They have that every year. It is a big international event. There's going to be a lot of high profile spaceflight related companies here that I'm hoping to interview, and also an exclusive event being rolled out by Dynetics, new technology, a new NASA competition, in fact, for Artemis that has not yet officially been rolled out to anybody, and yet they told me what it was, which kind of blows my mind. I don't know why they trusted me with that, but I'm grateful for that, and I'm going to get a chance to cover that exclusively, which is why I am here. So where is everybody checking in from? Where that is obviously something that we need to talk about. It looks like somebody jumped in for me there, which is great. France, Ireland, British Columbia, South Wales, hello, Derbyshire, Ohio, Spain, Houston, Texas. I'll be there very soon, actually. Berlin, hello, Berlin. I'd love to come visit your city someday. Amazing architecture there. Boy, all over the place. South Africa, New Mexico, Florida, New York, Poland, hello, Poland, Israel, Sweden, Massachusetts, Southern England, Latvia, New York State, Oklahoma, London, Kent, Finland, Virginia, UK. Chris, thank you so much for the 20 quid. Really do appreciate that. Washington, Florida, Chicago, Nevada, Vermont, Massachusetts, Iowa, Tennessee, Switzerland, Alaska. And oh my God, somebody just bought 10 new subscriptions, 10 new memberships to the Angry Advocates. Oh my God, you got a membership, you got a membership, you got a membership, you got a membership. You'll be getting a notification today as to how to join my Discord server. So a lot of new members of the community. Thank you so much for making that happen. Matthew Peck, oh my God. That's just amazing. Thank you so much. So happy every time I get a bunch of new members of the Discord community, folks who would like to contribute to everything going on, get an opportunity to talk to some really knowledgeable people who are working in the industry, who are deeply ingrained in the industry and really know a lot about what's going on, where I get a lot of my information, obviously from Manchester, Tunisia. By the way, Tunisia, hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm not sure if I've ever had anybody tune in from Tunisia before, at least not post. Hungary, hello, Utah, boy, all over the place. Again, UK, Florida, Colorado, Southwest Colorado, interesting. Shreveport, Louisiana, another Israel, Manchester, Portland, boy, all over the place. Tennessee, Netherlands, Cumbria, Enfield, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Manchester. Dear Lord, it goes on and on and on and on. So many people. It just blows my mind to see how many people have tuned in. Some people tuning in from Colorado Springs, I see today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Newfoundland, Boy, absolutely fantastic. Hungary, the Azores, Accrington, boy, just everywhere. Cornwall, hello, Cornwall. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Virginia, Winnipeg, Malaysia. Hello, Malaysia. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Toronto. Hello. Thank you, Aaron, for the $10. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Melbourne, Finland. Boy, it's just overwhelming how many people, almost 350 people watching today. V Hope, Mark, Michael Brimmer, John Depker, Mike, thank you so much for the super chat. Holy, the thing took off. Yorkshire, England, Brazil. Hello, Brazil. Hope things are going well there right now with your new president having taken office there and all that. Hope everything's is going well in Brazil. I know there was some instability there for a while, but things seem to be going smoothly at this point. So I'm happy about that. Chesterfield, even if you don't like the president, at least everything went smoothly. Norway, which is more than I can say for what happens here these days. A lot of disagreements over elections these days, which I'm not going to touch, by the way. Just a statement of reality. Lots of disagreements about what happens. Thank you so much, VTS 747 for $10. Angryville, Utah. Boy, all over the place. You guys are absolutely fantastic. So Zurich, Switzerland. So here's the deal. A lot of the new viewers may not really be aware of what all of this means. Why is this so important? Why is it so crucial that this test happened? You know, what really is the big deal? I mean, obviously, it's a gigantic rocket. Why do we need a gigantic rocket? Are there any cargoes? Are there any payloads that really have a need for a rocket that's capable of carrying 100 metric tons up to low Earth orbit? Well, the short answer to that is no, there isn't. Aside, at least not currently, nobody really has a cargo that requires that colossal amount of payload. However, with the possible exception of SpaceX, because they cannot deploy the full-size version of their version 2 Starlink satellites without Starship. So that is super important that they do it for that. But other than that, you know, why the massive super rocket? Well, there is of course, you know, I'm going to lead off with one of the most important things about Starship, and that's the fact that it's our only ticket to the surface of the moon. The only way currently that we, at least in planning right now, at least something that has a tangible test article right now, the only way that we can land on the moon is with Starship. By the way, thank you so much, Jim Laws, 550 Canadian. Really do appreciate that. So, you know, granted, sometime in the distant future, 100 metric tons is going to be important. But, you know, why does it need to be successful now? Why do we need to get it to orbit now? Well, obviously, if we want to land on the moon by 2025 or probably 2026, I mean, let's be real here. All the things that NASA keeps saying about how they're shooting for Artemis 3 to happen in 2025, we all know that that's not going to happen. It's 2026. So that means SpaceX needs to get Starship from where it is now to a ship that's capable of carrying human beings, a ship that can handle a rapid cadence of refueling missions, etc., everything that's required to get to the moon. That's a lot. And so therefore, we need as successful a test as we can get tomorrow, assuming that it even happens tomorrow. Roger, thank you so much for the $10. Really do appreciate that. So that's one of the first, first extremely important aspects to Starship, and one of the reasons why there should be a sense of urgency with what's going on today. Now, just to be clear, SpaceX has set, very wisely, by the way, has set extremely realistic expectations for tomorrow's launch. Honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot of people at SpaceX, including Elon Musk, who really expect this thing to do any better than to get to space. And that would be an amazing accomplishment in itself. And that means, I don't mean get to orbit. I'm talking, get past the Kármán line or something like that before they have to blow it up, before they have to use the flight termination charges. That I think is the best they're hoping for. If they somehow manage to get this thing anywhere near the landing site off the coast of Hawaii, there's going to be celebrating like you have never seen or heard before. Not only obviously with SpaceX, but with everybody else. It will be nothing short of miraculous. Mike, why does Williams just Starship Enterprise smell bad? Because William Shatner. So obviously we, if you're going to give me $5, I have to tell that awful joke and subject everybody to it. Okay. So, that being, so, that's what happens tomorrow is extremely important. But however, what is regards as, what can we regard as a passing grade? Well, I did a video about that. A passing grade, that is to say a C minus, let's say, would be if Starship doesn't get to max Q, but at least gets far enough away from the pad and away from Boca Chica and away from Port Isabel and South Padre Island to where it doesn't really cause any damage if it blows up. That's I gave that like a C minus or so. By the way, we just got as to what's going to happen. Perform nominally 53%. Lots and lots of confidence in this rocket. And by the way, that would be an unprecedented thing if they pull that off, because this is not a rocket to where every little component has been tested, to failure a million times like we have with SLS, like we have with Vulcan Centaur, the other rockets that we expect to perform nominally on their first flight. This is a rocket that everybody pretty much expects to fail at least at some point. Also, we need to keep in mind that B7 and S24 have been through a hell of a lot of abuse. And by the way, my prediction still remains solid, although in a modified form. I still don't think S24 is going to actually be the test article that makes it to orbit. I don't think it'll get that far. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, but I don't think S24 and B7 are in good enough shape to get the rocket all the way to that point. Once again, I'm a bit surprised that they are taking things this far, but I'm thinking, well, you know what? We've tested it all the way up to this point. Let's go ahead and roll the dice and see, what kind of result we get. Now, on the other side of the equation, what happens if we have a great big failure? Well, obviously, we don't want to have anything like that. None of us hopes for, even people who hate Starship, even people at the Sierra Club, even they, I'm telling you with every bit of confidence, they don't want to see that happen. And the reason for that is the amount of damage that it's going to do to a protected wildlife area, protected region a protected region with endangered species in the area is going to be pretty cataclysmic. At the very least, it's going to do that. And it could theoretically do a lot more. I'm going to read you something real quick here, a little excerpt. And this, I'm sure a lot of you can guess what I'm about to read here, but nevertheless, I'm going to go ahead and go through this. Okay. This is referring to people observing a very famous rocket launch. While they stood frozen and stunned, a giant red and black mushroom cloud erupted over the pad and step, and the air around them started vibrating. "Lay down," Menshikov finally yelled, and he jumped into the trench behind him. Soldiers and officers were scrambling into the darkness of the trench, trampling and falling onto each other, suddenly realizing the total inadequacy of this protection. Above them, the ground was galloping and the air was roaring with shock waves. As Lieutenant Colonel Semen Komarovsky later said, "Today, I saw without exaggeration the end of the world, and not in a nightmare, but while fully awake and standing right next to it." This is what happened when N1 exploded. And this is why I go on and on and on about this shit. It's because this is what's happened in the past, and it can happen again. There has been no rocket this huge and with this many engines that's been attempted to be launched since N1. N1 was the last rocket with this many engines clustered around a single propulsion system. Yes, Falcon Heavy has 27 engines, but at the same time, it's 3 separate Falcon 9s, rockets that we really thoroughly understood by the time Falcon Heavy was tested. This is something entirely different. And again, this is why I go on and on about this stuff, because a duplication of what happened in the Soviet Union in the early 1970s is going to be nothing short of cataclysmic. It will, at the very least, wipe out the whole launch facility, the tank farm, all of that will be devastated. And not only that, you know that those Sierra Club people are going to be crawling all over that area, examining every bush, every tree, and plus if there's lots of stainless steel debris that gets chucked onto the beach, that sort of thing, all of those things could very well sabotage, what's happening with Starship for a very long time. Obviously, we don't need that. None of us want that to happen. And, I think it's very unlikely that something like that might happen. But I think it's more likely that something like that would happen now as opposed to any other rocket launch in history. For example, SLS blowing up, far, far less likely because we have far fewer engines. Number one, engines that were well understood and had flown many times before. And just a rocket that had also been tested to failure, every single component over and over and over again. So another reason why tomorrow's test is important from a negative side is if anything goes really seriously wrong, that could spell doom for the program for quite some time. It might even make NASA very hesitant to let this rocket take off from Cape Canaveral if it does a tremendous amount of damage. Let's just hope that it doesn't. And SpaceX is doing a lot to try to prevent that from happening, obviously. That's one of the reasons why it has taken this long for this launch to transpire. SpaceX is observing a substantial amount of caution here, way more caution than they usually observe in order to make sure that this goes smoothly. By the way, Graham, thank you so much for the 20 quid. Really generous of you. Thanks so much to everybody for being so generous today. John, thank you so much. Really do appreciate your support. And yeah, I certainly hope that there will be no problems. Also, one other thing needs to be kept in mind is that was the number 2 launch of N1. The first launch of N1 managed to achieve a distance of, about 10,000 meters, I believe, or somewhere in that vicinity before it blew up. It was actually the second launch that created that particular cataclysm. So, this is in the early stages of Starship. This is a very dangerous time for the program. And this is a time where all of us are really hoping that everything goes well. And this is a time where I think the experts at SpaceX are doing a really good job to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And by the way, I feel that it's very likely indeed, that the rocket will at least get far enough away from the pad to where it doesn't create any problems. Okay, so let's go to the other side of the equation. What happens if it gets past max Q? What happens if it makes it to space? What happens if it even manages to land? Well, another major thing that Starship is bringing to the table for the future of spaceflight is cost per kilogram. Bear with me. My mouth gets dry a lot faster here in Colorado. This is a very dry climate here. Okay, so obviously the cost per kilogram of getting things to orbit has been a huge barrier to us doing anything with space. Going back to the moon, establishing a thriving economy in low Earth orbit. I'm actually going to be putting out a video, hopefully right after the Starship launch attempt tomorrow, covering some of these details, covering what NASA is planning to do to establish a lunar economy. A cislunar economy, rather, a multi-trillion-dollar economy. And it will be more easily facilitated, obviously, by something that can get cargoes to orbit for, a very low price, per kilogram. Andrew, thank you so much. Rock tile dysfunction time. We've got some great jokes going today along with the super chats. Thanks for your generosity, and thank you for subjecting us to these intriguing jokes. So obviously if we can get if we can get payloads to orbit for $200 per kilogram, for example, which is a target that SpaceX is talking about with Starship, my God, the impact that's going to have on our future capability of building a vibrant economy in space is going to change everything forever. There are so many things that can be manufactured in bulk in space that bring a huge benefit to mankind. Obviously, we're talking about 3D printing of organs to make organ banks obsolete, and various other new medical technologies that are very difficult to experiment with here on Earth because of the presence of gravity. If you can do it in microgravity, it eliminates a lot of these requirements. Now, in addition to that, you also, can manufacture new types of alloys. Just about any alloy you can think of can be put together in microgravity in ways that it cannot be done here on Earth. Thank you so much, TSP Crowther, for the pound. I really do appreciate your generosity there, everybody's generosity today. Wow, it's amazing how much you guys have done to support everything I've been doing lately. It blows my mind. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for all of that. So, all of these things will be much easier to implement. Massive space stations in orbit, for example. For Starship could deploy several components of a new space station all at once if it wanted to. Of course, the bigger the space station, the more work, the more manufacturing, the more experimentation, the more people you can put into space. And all of this brings huge benefits. And none of this, by the way, has anything to do with Mars. None of it. And yet Starship brings all of these enormous benefits to the future of spaceflight. Thank you so much, Edwin, for the €6. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, I don't really think those heat tiles are going to hold on very well. They took a long time putting those on. It was a bit by bit process. I don't know. We'll see, but I don't know if they're going to hold together very well. So all of that having been said, those are some of the immediate benefits that we can get from just a significantly reduced cost per kilogram. Now, does this mean it's going to put everybody else out of business? No. And I'll tell you why it isn't going to put everybody out of business. Starship, for a while, is going to be a difficult rocket to get into space. It is so huge, and the exclusion zone is so massive, and the consequences of a pad RUD are so big with this rocket compared to anything else that we have ever tried to use in the past. That means that just, deploying payloads with this rocket will be more difficult. Roger, thank you so much for the $5. And, another thing to mention is the fact that the FAA has only approved 5 experimental launches per year from Boca Chica. The only way that Starship is going to be, a vehicle carrying lots of customers to orbit on a regular basis is if it's launching from Cape Canaveral all the time, in which case the Cape has to be comfortable with the safety of this ship, this massive rocket taking off from their facilities that they don't want to see get ruined either. Kevin, thank you so much for the $11 Canadian. Thanks so much to everybody for your support. So, that could present some difficulties in terms of, trying to make Starship the ultimate competitor. Another thing that's going to be a big difference is the fact that another thing that's going to make a difference is the fact that Starship has a difficult time getting cargoes to geosynchronous orbit without refueling. Without a third stage, which it doesn't have yet, and without refueling, Starship, because it is so big and so heavy, has a really challenging time delivering cargoes to geosynchronous orbit or all the way out to the rest of the solar system until you get the whole refueling process down pat and mastered and affordable enough to where it makes Starship a viable alternative to just launching the payload on a Falcon Heavy or launching the payload on a Vulcan Centaur. Then that will be another thing that will keep Starship from being this overpowering, competitor. It will, of course, be a very potent competitor, but there will be other rockets that can still compete with it for quite some time. Mike, thank you so much for the super chat. What if New Shepard collides with Launcher One? Virgin Orbit will be renamed Orbit. Yes. We see we'll see what happens with New Shepard has been a bit of a disappointment lately. It is obvious that whatever went wrong with New Shepard is something that they are having to look very deeply into. And the next launch of New Shepard, by the way, is an unmanned launch. So again, Blue Origin is kind of lagging behind everybody else. So what else is new? And that is another thing that's important about this test, obviously. In many ways, New Glenn is, a big time competitor with Starship, capable of hauling enormous amounts of payload, maybe not 100 tons, but 45 tons, which is still a hell of a lot in today's market. But if they can't get the thing off the ground, for at least another year, that's going to present a significant problem to Blue Origin in terms of being competitive. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're going to go away. Jeff Bezos can keep them alive forever, but that is one reality. Thank you, Hello Computer, for your generous support. Over 600 people watching. My God, it blows my mind. We have such an enormous audience today. Thank you so much for tuning in. By the way, please please subscribe. Without you guys, obviously, I wouldn't be at 100K. So thanks so much for all that. And thank you so much for being part of this viewing family. So, Artemis, obviously. Cost per kilogram, obviously, and all the benefits that brings to spaceflight, all of those things are huge benefits. And then once we have the refueling process down, the solar system is now open to the human species. Once we have low Earth orbit refueling mastered, once we have reusability mastered with Starship, then it opens up the entire solar system, not only for exploration, not only for huge cargoes, but obviously for colonization. Colonization is obviously the next step, whether it be the moon, whether it be Mars, or in the future, the moons of Jupiter, which are about to be examined very, very closely by the European Space Agency JUICE mission, which will be gathering lots and lots of important information about those moons. And a lot of them, at least Callisto and probably Ganymede, are very well suited to human colonization. Starship will make all of those things possible, simply because of its capability of hauling huge amounts of payload once refueled to virtually any place in the solar system. That is an enormous capability that no other rocket has. Now, it is possible that the Centaur 5, which is the new version of the ACES upper stage, from ULA, it will have that reusability, refueling capability, et cetera, to haul maybe 25 tons to a variety of different locations. So doing this on a smaller scale. But what will make any ship that needs to refuel in orbit, what will give it the capability of doing that? Obviously, a ship that can haul enormous amounts of fuel into orbit in the first place to gas up a 1,000-ton or a 1,500-ton fuel depot with not only methalox, but also with hydrolox, or with kerosene, or with whatever else you need in order to refuel your rocket in low Earth orbit. Once all of that's done, the super rockets that get to the moon on one shot, in other words, the SLSs of the world, those will no longer be needed. Those will be dinosaurs. Stephen, thank you so much for the $5. Really do appreciate that. Mike's, thank you so much for the super chat. You guys want to see my dragon. Oh my God. A space nerd pickup line, is it? Crawl, thank you so much for the tenor. Really do appreciate that. But the RUDs like SN11, yeah. Well, if it airbursts like SN11, the devastation will be kind of difficult to anticipate. Once again, I think the best thing for you to do if you want to see what that might look like is to read up in detail about what really happened with N1, with that fateful second launch attempt. And by the way, it didn't stop the Soviets from keeping on trying. They gave 2 more launches after that. But the difference is, of course, that took place in a extremely secretive military location in the middle of Kazakhstan, where there was where there certainly were no civilians around. Sean, thank you so much for the 5 quid. Really do appreciate that. And thanks very much for being a long-term viewer. Man, so many people watching right now. Sorry, God. Throat still drying out here. So Starship brings a capability that not only is good for SpaceX, not only is good for, Elon Musk's ambitions of colonizing the solar system or going to Mars. Starship brings a capability to every launch provider that wants to take a lot of payload throughout the solar system. With that capability of, building huge fuel depots, huge space stations in low Earth orbit, huge amounts of payload to the moon with, lunar cities, that sort of thing. All of those things that have only been possible in science fiction prior to this are now going to be possible once Starship is functioning properly. Once again, I don't anticipate that happening tomorrow. I really think that... Oh, we have a new channel member. I am very sorry. You missed him. Mr. Galloway, so sorry for missing you as a new channel member. Thanks so much, all of you who are now new channel members. You are going to get a message today telling you how to sign up for my Discord server. That's just a benefit of being an angry advocate. You get early access to my content. You get to talk to me if you want to. And also you get to talk, more importantly, to people who are really involved in the industry and really know a lot about what's going on right now. Pretty exciting stuff going on at the moment. So, tomorrow, everybody talks about what a huge event that tomorrow is, but it's difficult really to get a firm grasp on everything that this represents for the future of spaceflight and indeed for the future of the human species. It is so big. If it goes really well, we are going to take a monumental leap forward. Even if it gets past Max Q, that's still a big leap forward. If it has a pad RUD or something similar to that, we could be delayed for some time. All we can hope is that nobody gets injured or killed if something like that is to take place. Once they fire up all 33 of those engines at 90% power, as opposed to the 50% that they did during the static fire, we really don't know what's going to happen at all. All we have are theories. All we have are mathematical models. We really don't know how things are going to turn out. So there's going to be a lot of people, I think, chewing down their fingernails at that very crucial moment. And of course, all we can do as observers is hope for the best. By the way, BA, thank you so much for the first solar system ambassador. I'd like that very much. But I don't think I'll be going to space. I think that that's not something in the cards for me, but Starship is something that will make it possible for my children, for the young people, the younger generation today who are watching this, who hear my voice right now. You guys should be especially excited, because if this goes very well tomorrow, then you could very well be working in space in the future. You could very well be traveling to another planet. You could be finally making the human race a multiplanetary species by taking us elsewhere and ensuring the future of human civilization. I don't see, what could be possibly more exciting than all of that. And there are so many people watching today who may be part of that amazing future that we have in front of us. Let me go ahead and mention this one last super chat of 11 euros. Thank you so much, Michael. Starship is successful, will trigger a space race. Yep, with China. Great news for space nuts, no question at all. And not just good news for space nuts. As I mentioned before, good news for the future of the human race as we become a multiplanetary civilization, but also as we create all of these new technologies, especially the medical technologies that can be created, experimented with, and manufactured in space in microgravity that cannot be done here. Starship will give us far easier access to that. And then the human race will take a huge leap forward in terms of another ambition of ours, possibly becoming immortal, or at least wiping out all disease in the future. I do believe that all of those things are possible if we exploit the environment of space, the environment of microgravity to its fullest extent. Starship will make all of these things possible. Enjoy watching tomorrow. I will be providing commentary, and until these monumental changes all take place, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.